Now, Milley's comments were shocking, but not to the media, who sees where political power currently resides.
Milley delivered a sermon on anti-racism and pro-intellectualism.
It was great to hear the general reinforce the point that more people need to learn, people need to actually educate themselves.
It was so bracing, it was so encouraging.
General Milley ought to be applauded not only today, but every single day that he goes to work.
Joining me now, independent journalist Glenn Greenwald. Glenn, I mean, now I've seen it all. I've seen the far left and liberals and phony conservatives now come to the military's defense, even when the military appears to be getting very, very political. Your reaction to all of this?
Well, first of all, when as journalists do we celebrate the military, and not just anyone in the military, but the top military official, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, weighing in on extremely polarizing cultural and political debates and applauding him for doing so? It's exactly what we want the military not to do. Secondly, the question about why would the military suddenly embrace what is essentially leftist cultural dogma, not something we're accustomed to seeing the military do over the last 7 or 8 decades, to put that mildly, is, I think, a really interesting question. And if you look, Laura, at what the military posture is under the Biden administration, they very much want to initiate a new war on terror, one that's aimed domestically, and their identified enemy are not ISIS or Al-Qaeda or Russia or China or anything like that. They say the gravest threat to national security are domestic extremists, and specifically white supremacists. So by embracing this kind of doctrine that says that white supremacy is pervasive throughout the society, what that general is really doing is justifying this domestic war on terror, as all of these journalists applaud him for doing so. It's really quite an amazing spectacle.
Yeah, well, and going through social media, they've already said that they have to do that in order to tamp down on domestic terror and extremism. When they use such a broad term, that's frankly meaningless. The word extremism, what does that mean? Extreme to whom? On what basis? What are their objective metrics for determining extremism? And you see these MSNBC hosts kind of like, oh, this is so great. Like they're like the Bobby Soxers of 2021 with Milley. By the way, CNN, it's not going to surprise you, is justifying General Milley's comments with another general. Watch.
He's faced with extremism in the ranks. He's faced with an enemy that is based on white rage. So what he's doing is studying them. He's trying to get to know the enemy. And he said this, what caused this white rage? How do you define it, and how do you eliminate it from within the military ranks?
Glenn, I guess white people are the only ones who can get enraged these days. And I can't even believe I'm hearing these words come out of former military, current military. Now the enemy is us, meaning the people.
Well, I think it's a key point. You know, I think a lot of people who cheered for the war on terror and the immediate aftermath of 9/11 came to understand that when you vest immense power in the hands of the government in the name of fighting a war that's very amorphous against terrorism, it can lead to a lot of abuses, and it's very hard to end it once it begins. Now we're talking about doing exactly the same thing, but this time directed inward at our own citizenry. And there are very few things more dangerous, as you say, than empowering the government to wage a domestic war against its own citizenry without extremely restrictive constraints on who they're targeting. And all they're saying is we're going after extremists, and not just extremists, but white extremists in particular. And the other really disturbing part is General Barry McCaffrey, who's a 4-star general who now works at NBC News, came on and said, your colleague Tucker Carlson, other people at Fox News, including yourself, who criticized General Milley, ought to be fired immediately, as though now it's off limits to even critique military officials, I suppose in the name of democracy. But these people who have babbled about fascism for 5 years are now cheering generals, demanding that journalists be fired for the crime of criticizing generals when they intervene in our politics. It's a really disturbing climate that's being created.
Meanwhile, after 20 plus years, we were not able to overcome the Taliban. Don't you think he has bigger things that he should be worrying about? Glenn, great to see you. Thank you so much.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.